So welcome everybody. You guys, tonight we are in for a great treat. We have Dr. Nicola Ducharme on with us this evening, and boy, you guys are in just to get some of the best and most incredible information of your life. Dr. Nicola has now become a personal friend of mine, and just really, truly not only an incredible doctor, but an incredible human being. And I just love hearing her talk about the science that you're going to be hearing about tonight. So couldn't be any better of a person to hear it from than Dr. Nicola. So just to let you guys know a little bit about myself, my name is Jenny Crane, and I'm from Huntington Beach, California. And I myself was on a health and wellness journey. I had massive issues in my body about 6 years ago when I found this biohacking science, and it's completely not only transformed my health, but the health of my family. So being able to share this information, I know, is not only going to be detrimental to you guys, but detrimental to the future of your families as well. So like I said, we're blessed to have Dr. Nicola on with us tonight and just really explain in detail what this science actually is. And before she gets on, I'm just going to introduce her to you. I know most of you guys know who she is, whether you're a patient of hers or a personal friend. She's absolutely one of the most knowledgeable people and doctors and naturopaths that I've had the pleasure to work with. So a little bit about Dr. Nicola. Dr. Nicola is the founder and medical director of Restore Medicine. She practices holistic medicine specializing in Lyme disease, hormone balancing, autistic spectrum disorders, preconception healthcare, and digestive disorders. I didn't want to leave any of that out. Dr. Nicola started her own career working with children, specifically with autism. She's also developed a preconception healthcare program and worked with adults in areas of hormone balancing, detoxification, and digestive issues and fertility. So she's done it all, and I know that she's fallen into that Lyme community and has just really, really been impactful. Actually spoke with a woman yesterday that knows her and just talks so much about how much not only she does in helping the Lyme community, but really advocating for the Lyme community. So Dr. Nicola, we're thankful to have you on. And we're excited to hear from you all about this biohacking science and Nrf2, Nrf1 activation. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and let me unmute your line here. There you go.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much. So guys, we want to just keep this kind of really succinct tonight, but I do want to do a recap of the science because that's really what it's all about. And for me, when I discovered Nrf2 activation, it was a little bit of a new field of research for me. I mean, it's sort of not, it's very much a sort of medical breakthrough. It's not something that's really commonly acknowledged. It's something that's really special and caught my attention right away. And obviously, you know, with my Lyme practice, I work with a super duper sick population, and we have a lot of Lyme disease. We have a lot of mycotoxin illness. We have a lot of these sort of comorbidities, if you will, or like concurrent situations that just really tax the body and really can take it right out of a person, and very, very difficult to recover from. And we have our tools and we have our, you know, antimicrobials, and we have different things that we do along the way. And supplementation is a very common part of what sort of integrative practitioners do. And so what really stood out for me about this the Nrf2 activation is that it's not just supplementation. And I'm going to talk about how this works, but it's really about activating the cells and activating the body to heal itself. And there's a principle in naturopathic medicine. I mean, we have several principles at the basis of the foundation of what we do. But, you know, there's about things to do with like removing obstacles to cure, and about the body having the inherent wisdom and the inherent ability to heal itself. So we need to do it a couple of favors. We need to take away things that are taxing it and impacting that. But we also need to switch on our cells' ability to heal. And so that's really what we're talking about here. So just to give a quick recap, the Nrf2 activation, I tend to geek out a little bit on the science, so I'll say this, don't get too lost in it. So Nrf2, they're protein synthesis pathways within the cell, and they regulate a lot of different genes and a lot of genes that relate to detoxification. So when I look at Nrf2 activation, The nuts and bolts of it is this. It reduces oxidative stress in the body dramatically, and research shows an average of 40% in the first month, up to 70% in the second month, which is profound. I mean, really at the basis of every health issue, in my view, is toxicity and inflammation. And whether it's from chronic infection, whether it's from mold illness, whether it's from injuries, whether it's just flat out aging, toxicity and inflammation is really the root of all evil. And that's what we need to kind of sort out within our bodies, whatever the individual factors and the individual disease labels may be. So reducing oxidative stress, not only, you know, when I hear the word anti-aging, I always think it's very sort of cosmetic sounding, but it's not just about keeping us young and beautiful forever. It's about prevention of disease. So if we can stop ourselves from being damaged and potentially killed off by free radicals, which are these agents that are naturally sort of harmful, they're naturally produced in the body, but they also are responsible for some of these breakdowns, then our cells are all healthier, and we stand a better chance to prevent chronic illnesses and help ourselves heal from chronic illnesses. So reducing oxidative stress is huge. The second thing is increasing natural glutathione production. And the Nrf2 activators increase inherent glutathione production by up to 300%. Now, glutathione is a master antioxidant. It's the most important antioxidant in the body and the most prevalent antioxidant in the body. And I have for years been forcing nasty glutathione liquids down my patients' throats and insisting that they do it no matter how it tastes, because I know how important glutathione is. It's crucial. So by activating Nrf2 pathways, we're increasing natural glutathione production. The other thing we're doing is opening up detox pathways. And I told you a second ago that the Nrf2 pathways in the cell, they regulate genes. And a lot of the genes they regulate are related to detoxification. So we open up detoxification pathways. The other thing about the gene expression and gene regulation is so many people now are impacted by methylation and these other gene defects. And we're busy trying to supplement with methyl B12 and methyl folate. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do, but I'm saying, what about if we could help how the genes express to proteins in the first place? Well, like, what if we can get in on the ground floor and not just sort of fix the problem after the fact? So to me, that's really the nuts and bolts. We're increasing glutathione production. We're increasing the body's natural ability to detoxify. We're reducing oxidative stress, which causes damage to the cells. And we're helping with gene expression and the regulation of how our genes actually are made into the proteins, which are the building blocks of our whole body. So that, in a nutshell, is how I view Nrf2 activation. Nrf1 activation is more about healing the mitochondria. So the mitochondria are the little powerhouses in the cell, the little organelles that produce our energy. So a lot of us know energy is like what makes it a good day or a bad day, a good run or a bad run. I can get out of bed, I can't get out of bed. Like that, we feel energy, right? It's subjective. But energy is really ATP. That's the fuel. And it's like saying we go put petrol in our car. Well, do we put in diesel, or do we have, what kind of fuel do we have running this engine? So not only does ATP make us feel better because we feel like we have more energy, it is necessary to support the function of the cell and the function of the body. Like every single billion things you have going on in your body right now are being run by ATP. And so if we don't create enough ATP because we're toxic, which we all are in our nice Western world with all our EMFs and our heavy metals and our pesticides and our Roundup and all the stuff, then that slows down the mitochondria. Aging slows down the mitochondria. So the Nrf1 supports and heals the mitochondria so we can produce more ATP. So we feel more energetic, but every little tiny function in your body that you're not even aware of right now requires ATP for it to happen. And so if we can provide more ATP, it's going to happen more and happen better. So the combination of the two is really powerful. And to just link the dots and connect the dots, the processes that drive detoxification and drive all these biochemical pathways, they do require ATP. So the Nrf1 activator gives us more energy to do the functions that the Nrf2 activator enables. Right? So the Nrf2 activator is like, okay, I'm going to open up the detox pathways. Okay, I'm going to reduce oxidative stress. I'm going to do all of this stuff. What you got for me? And then the Nrf1 activator says, oh, I have more ATP for you to help you to do those things. And so that's why the combination of both is so important, because one supports the other. The final thing that I would say, just in wrapping up, is it doesn't matter. Well, let me qualify that. The Nrf1 and Nrf2 help the body regardless of what's going on. So a lot in Western medicine these days is about disease states and labels, and it's this, oh no, it's this, it's that. We've got to suppress the symptoms. We have to, chase after trying to solve the problem, but the problem isn't addressing the underlying cause. A lot of Western medicine is about suppressing symptoms to make someone feel more comfortable, which is fine. I do that too sometimes. But the bottom line is, regardless of what's labeled and what's going on, what's manifesting in the body, should I say, the root causes are all the same. And part of it is to do with our genetics, how it manifests. Part of it is to do with environment. There's so many different variables, but the root of it is the same. And the Nrf2 and the Nrf1 activators are phenomenal at addressing that root cause level. Jenny, I'll hand back to you. That's my synopsis.
Hold on, I'm trying to unmute. Can you guys hear? Can you hear me now? I'm so sorry. My line wouldn't unmute. Well, thank you, Dr. Nicola. What I love about your explanation is that it's very, very simple. We have a group that we actually started on Facebook that's going to go into more of the detailed science of what we're talking about here. We have 24 peer-reviewed studies on PubMed.gov regarding this Nrf2 science. So we can direct you to more detailed information. But I know that Dr. Nicola wanted Natalie and Lisa to kind of just share their quick story and just a little bit about how they found this biohacking science and a little bit about their health challenges and health journeys. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and Natalie to kind of give you guys just a little idea of how impactful that this science is in healing the body. And we don't really want to ever make medical claims about anything. Really the body is the miracle. And when it's given the right tools, that's where the healing begins. So we want to make sure we're staying compliant there. But I'm going to unmute Lisa and Natalie's line here. And then guys, just to let you know, we're going to be opening this up for question and answers after Natalie and Lisa kind of share a little bit about their story. So if you have a question that you'd like Dr. Nicola to answer, utilize the chat button down below. So if you see on that bottom black bar, there's a chat button. Click on that, and we'd love to answer just some basic questions. I know we kind of covered a lot, but we'll be opening that up. So Natalie and Lisa, I'm going to unmute you. And Natalie, if we can just start with you, if you can just give us a little bit of a picture into your journey over the last 5 years, and then Lisa, turn it over to you after that. That'd be awesome.
Okay, thank you. Well, so when I discovered Nrf1 and Nrf2 activation, this was back in February. And at the time, I was living in my bed and on IV feeding and on IVs 8 hours a day, pulsing IV antibiotics and antiparasitics for Lyme disease. And prior to that, I had tried lots of different things that were all very, very good. But unfortunately, my nervous system was completely shot from all these different infections. And with the inflammation and the toxicity, it just was like a huge override. So when I started taking it, I was, like I said, in bed on IVs and on IV feeding. And I had 36 symptoms, from skin crawling to joint pain, migraines. Taking a shower was like horrible. It would take me the longest time to even walk down the hall. And within 4 days, I noticed I was able to walk down the hall without stopping to go to the bathroom. I know that's TMI, but it's a big deal when you're living in bed and you can walk to the bathroom and not have to stop. And then I noticed the sound and light sensitivity was starting to go down within a week, and I was able to drive and tolerate clothes. And I noticed like other things from my Lyme doctor was starting to work. Some of the tinctures, some of the medicines. I was able to switch from IV feeding and IV antibiotics and antiparasitics to oral antibiotics and antiparasitics. And I was able to switch to normal foods. And within 2 months, dancing and surfing and back to a normal social life, and being able to keep doing treatment and tolerate the treatment with less of a what you call a Herxheimer reaction when you kill the Lyme bacteria. So for me, it was a quicker noticeable change because I was so sick and had so many symptoms, and it's continuing to do its job for what is still needed to maintain things, but it completely activated me from the ground up, and every little thing from brain function to every kind of like neurosensory type thing, it just continued to get better and better. And that's my story. It's long, short, but yeah, so that's my story. And I'm really thankful that we crossed paths and that I've been able to take it, because it changed my life drastically. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I'm ready. So about 7 months ago, I started Nrf1 and Nrf2 as well. I was undiagnosed with Lyme disease for 18 years, symptoms, and started treatment in September of 2014. And about a little over 3 years in, I just was still struggling. I did see a lot of gains with my treatment, but I was ultimately still so weak where I felt like I was almost bedridden myself. Part of my story was more complex because I also had mold exposure, and really didn't know that was going on for many, many years. And so because I didn't know, it wasn't really addressed. And anyway, so once I started to address that and do a little bit tweaking of my Lyme protocol, and adding in the Nrf1, Nrf2, things really, really shifted. It took me a little bit longer. I started seeing a change from the very first day of taking one Nrf2, but I wasn't taking the Nrf1 actually. So within a month, I realized I need to get that on board. And once I got that on board, it was a really quick shift. And like Natalie, we kind of were in touch throughout both of our treatment plans. And when I found out that she was actually out of bed and doing everything, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to get out and live life too. I wasn't to the point where I was bedridden, but I was homebound and wasn't able to do anything. So, and it was a very quick recovery from there, and I'm living a normal life. I actually stopped my Lyme protocol. I'm biking, hiking, I'm running, swimming in the water and the ocean, and traveling a little bit here and there. And it's been a crazy journey, but I don't think I would be where I was if I didn't add the two products in. It's been life-changing for me as well. So it's all about the quality of life. We've both got that back now. It's been awesome. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Natalie and Lisa. You know, I've been here from the beginning watching you guys walk this journey, and I myself do not have Lyme, but I've been just connected with a lot of people in your community and now with Dr. Nicola. And so I truly know that this is a gift on so many levels to the community. And I know that's why Dr. Nicola invited most of you to watch this information tonight. It is groundbreaking, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Nicola. I'd like for her to kind of talk through the logistics of starting Nrf2, Nrf1 activation. I know this is more along the lines of the chronically ill. So Dr. Nicola, if you would just kind of share how that works. And guys, if you want to start typing in your questions in the chat, it would be awesome, because once she's done with that, we're going to open it up. So Dr. Nicola, I'm going to unmute you and then go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, I mean, we're sort of in the realms of chronic illness, but this is the case for everybody as well. So we actually recommend that you start with the Nrf2, because that will start opening up the detox pathways and just kind of get the ball rolling. Now, for people who do have chronic health conditions, we recommend starting sort of gradually. So anytime you open up a detox pathway or you accelerate detox in the body, it can be a little bumpy at first. And, you know, I've experienced that myself. And by the grace of God, I don't have Lyme and I have good health and all these, you know, beautiful things that I'm very grateful for. And yet, you know, if I do a detox or if I do too much detox too quickly, I'll still feel it, like a little headachy, a little run down, or a little fatigued perhaps. And that's going to be potentially more so for people with chronic illness who have more sensitive systems, constitutions. So we do recommend with the Nrf2 that if you're in that category of being more sensitive, or if you are, you know, experiencing chronic health problems, that you could start slowly. Maybe start with half a tablet, maybe start with a quarter of a tablet, and just kind of work your way up gradually as you get a feel for, how's my body doing with this? Do I experience any detox reactions? There's no medal for just, you know, ramping up and going as fast as you can. But one of the things I love about the Nrf2 activation is, for the majority of people, there's going to be benefits with 1 tablet a day. And that's unheard of, because a lot of people in, you know, in these situations are taking 30, 40 things a day, or 30, 40 pills a day. So to have this where 1 a day can make a difference is really profound. And so in the general population, we suggest 1 a day. I will say I have seen cases where going a little bit higher than that was helpful, going up to 1 twice a day perhaps, just to keep that activation going on a more consistent basis, can be really helpful. But no matter what, start slow. Just kind of start with, for people who are healthier out of the gate, 1 a day is fine. For people who are more sensitive, or have more health challenges, a half a tablet or a quarter of a tablet, and build up more gradually. So we do recommend getting the Nrf2 in first, and then adding on the Nrf1. The Nrf1, the sort of full dose is 2 capsules a day. Again, more sensitive people can start with 1 and then kind of work up. Now, bear this in mind. So with the Nrf2 activator, it's opening up detox. So we're kind of, you know, getting the engine functioning better. And then the Nrf1, we're putting more logs on the fire. Okay, so we're facilitating the process so the body can take it and then run with it. So again, just be aware that as you're giving more fuel to the fire, it's helping your body function better. But sometimes for people who have chronic illness, that can be experienced as like, oh, we're detoxing more. Detox, ah! And so it just takes time to work through that process, and just, you know, goes slowly for those individuals. The other thing I would want to add in, and for my friends in the UK and my friends in Australia, this one isn't available to you yet. Hopefully it will be. But there is also a drink mix, and it's called Axio. So the Nrf2 is called Nrf2 Synergizer. The Nrf1 is called Nrf1 Synergizer. So that's pretty clear cut. Axio is one of my favorites amongst them. So I call it Nrf2 activation for the brain. Some people think of it as like a sort of energy source, sustained physical energy throughout the day. I also think of it as sustained brain energy throughout the day. And I can speak for myself. Sometimes when I have long days with patients back to back to back to back to back, I walk out in the afternoon feeling like my brain is about to explode. I will say, since I've been taking Axio, I don't get that feeling. I walk out going, okay, day's done. We're all good. Everything's okay. So it's nice for the sustained energy without the crashes, both physical and mental. So that's available here in the US, Australia, UK, or other parts of the world, not necessarily yet, but the Nrf2 and Nrf1 are really the foundation of everything. I just wanted to mention Axio because I love it so much.
Absolutely. Well, Axio is actually considered Nrf2 activation for the brain. So it fits very well in synergy. Dr. Nicola, will you explain the synergistic effects of Nrf2, Nrf1 activation and really the importance? I know a lot of people that end up looking at the ingredient list of the Protandim, they are like, well, my naturopath has put me on 4 or 5 of these and these different ingredients. And what is so different about the patented blend here that we're looking at? And how is that significant in the body? Can you explain that a little bit in detail?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about the synergistic effect. And so sometimes more is not better. And so some people do say, oh yeah, well, I'm taking that herb and that herb and that herb and that herb and that herb. I'm covered. But what they don't understand is it's about the ratios of the different herbs and the different nutrients in the case of the Nrf1. So there is something in the formulation. It took a lot of effort and research and work to get that distinct formulation, and it is a patented formula. So so there's nobody who can recreate this. I mean, it's really kind of locked in. And there's 24, like Jenny said, 24 peer-reviewed studies. So for a nutraceutical, or whatever the word we're going to use, to have 24 peer-reviewed studies on PubMed for this specific product, not just like the products sort of that do similar things, this specific product, to me, is really profound. And so having something that's so clearly backed in science and backed in research, I think, is so important. So really it's how they're put together and the ratios. And what I really like about it is it doesn't necessarily have to be high doses. If we can get the right combination, the right formula, then we don't have to have people taking 5 different supplements to get that benefit. They're going to get a much greater benefit from, you know, the single thing in the right ratios, the right combination, and that's really where it's at.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely encourage each and every one of you. I typed in the chat bar www.pubmed.gov. That is the National Institute of Health. It is the gold standard of peer-reviewed research. So what I really appreciate about these products is that they've been independently studied and validated from third-party universities that actually fund these studies themselves, which is also very unique. I know that the National Institute of Aging actually said that Protandim increases lifespan by 7%. They took all of the anti-aging products from around the world, the top anti-aging products that we know of today, resveratrol and all of these different things. And at the end of that study, they said, you know, the conclusion of that study was that Protandim Nrf2 was the most effective in combating the diseases in aging and oxidative stress. So I encourage each and every one of you to go to pubmed.gov. I don't see any questions popping through, so I guess if anybody wants to start typing up a question. Dr. Nicola, is there anything you'd like to add as maybe people think of questions that they want to ask?
Yeah, so the thing that I would add, and I'm a bit of an animal lover, and so in my house, well, not actually in my house, but in my family, we have 2 dogs, 4 bunnies, and a horse. And so I just think it's worth making people aware that Nrf2 activation can benefit our animals as well. And I've been hearing some phenomenal stories of horses with Cushing's disease and horses who were lame, taking these Nrf2 activators, and it's really accelerated their healing as well. And I was really chuffed. I spoke to a friend of mine the other day, and her doggie is 16, I want to say, and he has cancer, and you know, they're not going to do anything too aggressive at this point. So they've been managing his pain with CBD and different things. And so they started him about a month ago on Pet Tandem, which is Nrf2 activation for pets. And she reported back the other day that he used to like pace the room and pant because his pain was fairly severe, and he had a lot of joint pain and stiffness, and he's got arthritis too, and he's an old boy. She was saying he's not pacing, he's not panting, he's much more comfortable. And she goes, oh, and his coat is really shiny, which I thought was cute. But these things are important for our animals as well. I mean, we're all mammals, so our cells work in similar ways, even though we have very different body structures. And so the horses are taking Nrf2 activators to accelerate their healing, and you know, dogs and cats and whatever. So I just wanted to make that point too, just because animals are such a big part of my life, and I know they are for a lot of different people out there. So.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So we have a question from Casey and also one from Justin. So I'm going to ask these real quick, but Casey asked, thank you all for your stories and contributions. Since I do not have a Facebook account, are there any alternative venues that you can recommend for me to find the peer-reviewed studies and or other information on Nrf2, Nrf1 in the near term besides pubmed.gov? So Dr. Nicola, I'll let you answer that because I know that you'll probably be in direct, conversation with Casey about this.
Well, yeah, Casey, I mean, I can certainly sort of help you with finding information along the way. So we'll talk about that later, but yeah, and good for you getting on Facebook. Oh, I really like that. Jenny, where else do you send people to get that information?
Yes, I definitely suggest your website, Dr. Nicola. There's quite a bit of information there. Another place is our Team Fearless YouTube channel. That, there's interviews in the past that I've personally done with some top doctors from across the country. Interviewed a neuro PT that deals specifically with TBI, brain injury, because this is such an all-encompassing problem, oxidative stress. We have much information, but YouTube's a great place to start. If you type in protandem and whatever disease process you're looking at or oxidative stress. So there's a lot of tools there. And so basically, we could even put an email together too with some additional information. But between that, I think that he'll have much to look at, Casey, much information. So we'll make sure we get that over to you definitely. Justin had a question. He said, Dr. Nicola, is there a relationship between gut health and Lyme disease symptoms? So talking about the gut-brain axis.
Yeah, I mean, there's a relationship between gut health and pretty much everything, to be honest with you. But yeah, there is. And a lot of it has to do with inflammation, and a lot of it has to do with the microbiome. So we now know so many more things about the gut than we used to know. We know it has its own immune system. We know it has its own nervous system. And we know that the microbiome, meaning the balance of the flora, all the bugs in there, the bacteria, the yeast, all the stuff that lives in our gut, has such a central role in our whole body's health. One of the things that I would want to point out is just about, like you said, Jenny, the gut-brain axis. So a couple of things there. One is whatever you're putting into your digestive system that creates inflammation. So a lot of the times it's the foods we're eating. I mean, so many of my patients are like, okay, I'm off gluten, I'm off dairy, I'm off sugar, I'm off, and some of them go to extremes of like grain and everything else. You would not believe how much better they feel, because anything that causes inflammation in the gut is going to impact the rest of the body. And it does that a couple of different ways. Inflammation in the gut increases leaky gut, which means that the spaces between the cells of the intestinal wall get further apart. So if you think of a brick and mortar, you know how we have a brick, so we have a little strip of mortar around, then we have the next brick. Well, that's all fine and well. If those bricks were further apart, all kinds of stuff could get through there. And so it is for our digestive system too. If there's leakiness in the small intestine, then larger food molecules go into the bloodstream. And as divine and intelligent as our bodies are, if they see a chunk of protein in the bloodstream, the immune system's going to go on attack. It's going to be like, this is not okay. You're an invader. I'm going to go after you. And so we're going to have those immune complexes form. With immune complexes, we get in chemicals of inflammation, cytokines, chemokines, and they travel through the bloodstream. So those chemical mediators of inflammation can cross the blood-brain barrier, get into the brain, and the term I always use is create fireworks, like, and not in a good way. They can create problems in the brain because those chemicals have traveled all through the body. Another example is if people have imbalances in the gut, like Candida, Clostridia, Klebsiella, all kinds of different yeast and bacterial imbalances, then that can create different chemicals as well. So Candida creates aldehydes, which are like alcohols. So I work with a lot of kids on the autism spectrum. I mean, I have some 4-year-old kids who sort of act all drunk half of the time. They're like giggling randomly. They're just goofy. And that's because they've got imbalances in their gut flora. So this is where probiotics and things that reduce inflammation, omega-3 fatty acids, probiotics that balance that gut flora, are so central to healing the gut imbalances that can cause inflammation all around the body and in the brain.
Thank you, Dr. Nicola. Will you explain, I mean, I know we weren't planning on covering probiotics here, but I think it's such a crucial part in this whole process and really kind of a benefit when you're looking at incorporating Nrf2, Nrf1 activation. Will you just explain super quick about the delivery system and the importance of the delivery system that is encompassed with the probiotic?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that stand out about the probiotic. One is the way it's formulated prevents it being broken down by stomach acid. So we have hydrochloric acid in the gut that is very, very, very strong and very powerful. And so sometimes when we take probiotics, unless we're taking massive doses, we lose some of that in the digestive system or through the stomach anyway. And the goal with probiotics is to get it to the intestines. We want to get it to the large intestine especially. So I like this probiotic very much because it is created in such a way that it resists the stomach acid. And so we know it's getting to where it's going to go. And in fact, the absorption is 85%, which is spectacular for a probiotic to absorb that, you know, to have an absorption rate that high. The other thing that's really impressive about it is it has beta-glucans. And beta-glucans are made from the wall of a yeast. It's not yeast containing. So people with candida, it doesn't bother. People with yeast allergies, it doesn't bother. It's not a yeast. That's just where it's sourced from. But beta-glucans are immune modulating. And so it's strengthening the immune system at the same time as, you know, balancing the gut flora. And so that's, you know, it's a great combination.
Thank you for that explanation. So we have one last question, and Alejandra, you are asking a really great question. So I just have to promote you on that, girl. So she wants to know, do you know if the results of gene mutations being reversed? Oh, do you know if there are results of gene mutations being reversed with the usage of Nrf2, Nrf1 activation? Good question.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is you have a recipe, right? You have a recipe, and if you follow the recipe to the absolute final detail, you will end up with a certain product. You will end up with a certain creation. And Jenny's husband is a chef. I'm not a chef or a good cook. So this is an analogy that makes sense to me. So you have the foundational recipe. If you follow it to the T, you'll end up with the same result, right? If you say, okay, I've got this recipe, but I'm going to adapt it a little bit because I think that a little bit of addition here and a little bit of tweaking there is going to give me a different result that's going to be better. That's how I look at Nrf2 activation with the genes. So our DNA is the recipe. Okay, we can't really change our DNA. What we can change is the way that our DNA is expressed. So if one has gene mutations, methylation, things like that, we're not saying that we're changing our genes. We're saying that we're adapting the way our genes express into proteins, which is actually, you know, the lifeblood of what our body is actually made up of. So it's kind of like that recipe. The genes are the recipe, but we can add or adapt or tweak what we put into that environment and influence the outcome. And that's this whole field of, sometimes it's called epigenetics, which just means beyond the genes. Like it's more than just the genes. That's the old school way of thinking that whatever our genes are, we're stuck with. So if somebody has the BRCA gene, like the breast cancer gene, two sisters have the BRCA gene. One of them ends up with breast cancer, the other doesn't. Why? Maybe one eats all organic. Maybe one lives near a power plant. Maybe there's outside influences to how our genes are actually expressed. So that's what we're talking about here. We can put Nrf2 activation in, and it's going to make our recipe turn out better, but it's not necessarily going to change our DNA.
Thank you, Dr. Nicola. That was a really great way. I love when you use analogies for us layman's over here. And I think that was a really great way to explain that. So you guys, this tonight was just kind of a general overview, informational, specifically geared to Nrf2, Nrf1 activation, but please stay in touch. We are going to be putting together more of a in-depth look at the science and the research of all we've covered here tonight. We'd like to invite all of you to do that. Dr. Nicola and I are going to get together and find a date that works. So stay in touch with us, but we'd like to invite you to hear more about this biohacking science, and then also open it up to invite people that you know that needs to hear this information. So be in touch with the person that invited you tonight. We will be scheduling that out. Like I said, we do have a Facebook group. We'd love to add you to more of the science and details there as well. So reach out to us on Facebook. And we're really just excited about the potential also of being able to share this information with the people that you know and love. So if you want to hear more along the lines of that, then definitely make sure you hit our next webinar. And hopefully we'll be able to schedule that sometime next week. Dr. Nicola, were you able to look at your schedule at all, or should we just get back to everybody separately?
We'll get back to everybody.
Awesome. Okay, I figured that. I know we've talked so much today, so we'll be in touch with you guys. And just thank you, Dr. Nicola, for taking time out of your busy evening. I know you're with patients and always wanting to educate, and we're just thankful to have you sharing this incredible information. We know it's going to change lives. And thank you also, Lisa and Natalie, for sharing your stories as well. I know it's very, very impactful. So I'll send the recording out, and please share it with the people that you know need to hear this information. So we'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.